the story of a rich spoilt girl who murdered her parents, Suzane Louise Von Richtofen. The Von Richtofen family, residing in São Paulo, Brazil, enjoyed a life of opulence and prosperity. Manfred Albert von Richtofen, a German engineer, and his wife Marija von Richtofen, a psychiatrist, lived in abundance. Their children, Suzane Louise von Richtofen, born November 3, 1983, and her younger brother Andreas Albert von Richtofen, were born into privilege and luxury. Their residence was an extravagant mansion, boasting a staggering value of $600,000. While the family's fortune was estimated at around $17 million, whispers circulated that they possessed even greater wealth stashed away in Swiss banks. Following her completion of school, Suzane pursued a law degree at the prestigious Pontifical Catholic University of São Paulo. A life of freedom and a considerable inheritance awaited her, seemingly making her journey through life effortless. However, Suzane yearned for something beyond the confines of her privileged existence. The allure of wealth and comfort was not enough to quench the thirst that burned within her. In August 1999, the Von Richtofen family attended a model aircraft fair. It was Andreas' newfound fascination with model planes that brought them to this event, where he would cross paths with an older boy named Daniel Cravinhos. Daniel possessed remarkable skills in building model airplanes, and Andreas was captivated by his talent. Intrigued and eager to learn, Andreas sought permission from his parents to be mentored by Daniel, an approval that was promptly granted. As Daniel began spending more time with the Von Richtofen family, an unexpected connection sparked between him and Suzane. Their romance took flight, transcending the significant disparities in their wealth and social standing. Suzane, raised in a world of privilege with an exceptional education, stood in stark contrast to Daniel, a high school dropout working at a local garage. Moreover, Daniel's untamed and rebellious nature contrasted Suzane's reserved and introverted demeanor. Despite these glaring differences, their relationship thrived. The unique chemistry between them seemed to defy all odds and expectations. Suzane harbored doubts about gaining her parents' approval for her relationship with Daniel. Initially, she kept their affair concealed, but with the passage of time, her parents became aware of it. Surprisingly, Suzane's parents remained unaffected by her choice. Manfred and Marija allowed her to continue dating Daniel, but their leniency came to an end when they discovered the truth about him. It turned out that Daniel's claims of being a law student and a skilled model airplane builder were nothing but falsehoods. He had abandoned both pursuits and instead succumbed to a daily routine of smoking marijuana. Daniel had no intentions of redeeming himself by pursuing education, seeking employment, or overcoming his addictions. Rather, he relied on Suzane's wealth, perhaps hoping that her financial resources alone would sustain their future. To hardworking individuals like Manfred and Marija, the prospect of their daughter being involved with a lazy, drug-addled suitor was utterly unacceptable. However, Andreas, Suzane's younger brother, saw no fault in her relationship. He provided cover and concocted imaginary stories to explain Suzane's absence to their parents, allowing Suzane and Daniel's secret rendezvous to flourish in motels or at Daniel's residence. The couple's deception reached its peak when Manfred and Marija were away for an entire month, leaving Daniel to move in with Suzane. During this period, they indulged in idleness by the poolside, consuming alcohol, experimenting with various drugs, and engaging in intimate encounters. Upon the parents' return, they discovered Suzane's transgression, leading to explosive arguments within the Von Richtofen family. Suzane found herself defenseless, resorting to a shameless plea for her parents to purchase an apartment for her and Daniel, allowing them to live their desired lifestyle. Manfred swiftly dismissed her proposal, urging her to earn her own income. Moreover, he threatened to cut off her financial support. Outwardly, Suzane appeared to acquiesce to Manfred's demands, submitting herself to his authority. However, deep down, she had no intentions of giving up on her relationship with Daniel. They continued their affair undeterred. In fact, Suzane and Daniel began hatching a sinister plan, a plan that would unfold with malicious intent. On November 1, 2002, Suzane and Andreas stealthily returned home at 4 a.m., having snuck out the previous night at 9 p.m. As they pushed open the door, a scene of utter chaos greeted them. The house had been thrown into disarray, and within moments, their eyes fell upon their parents' lifeless bodies in the master bedroom. Manfred and Marija had been ruthlessly murdered. Their faces bore the brutal marks of a relentless beating, rendering them unrecognizable. Strangulation marks adorned their necks, and Marija's head was covered with a chillingly placed garbage bag. The killers had employed multiple methods to execute their heinous act. The motive behind the murders seemed to be money-driven. The house had been thoroughly ransacked, with numerous spots where cash had been stashed, now emptied and abandoned. Initially, the crime appeared to be a botched burglary, but certain peculiarities caught attention. The alarm system of the house had been disarmed, indicating that the perpetrator either possessed knowledge of the system's code or had assistance from someone within. Furthermore, the scattered papers on the floor, presumably a result of the intruder's search for money, appeared more deliberate than randomly chaotic, almost staged. Additionally, certain rooms had been spared from the thieves' raids, and no electronic devices were reported missing. The case presented a perplexing puzzle, with many unanswered questions lingering in the air. The brutal murder captured the attention of the media, and one aspect that drew public interest was Suzane's seemingly subdued reaction to her parents' tragic demise. During the burial and the day of discovering the bodies, Suzane displayed an unusual level of calmness and composure compared to her brother. Rumors began to circulate, fueled by reports of a pool party hosted by Suzane just days after her parents' death. This added a suspicious layer to the already intense speculation surrounding her involvement. Compounding the suspicions were the conflicting statements provided by Suzane and Andreas regarding their parents' acceptance of Daniel. While Suzane claimed that Manfred and Marija approved of her relationship with Daniel, Andreas stood firm in speaking the truth. Suzane became a prime suspect, with many questioning her possible role in the murder. However, her alibi for the night of the crime somewhat checked out. She maintained that at 9 p.m. on October 31st, both she and Andreas had left home. Andreas was dropped off at a party, while Suzane claimed to have checked into a motel with Daniel. The siblings returned to their residence at 4 a.m. the following day, only to be confronted by the horrifying scene that awaited them, further deepening the mystery surrounding their parents' brutal slaying. In the days following the murder, an intriguing turn of events unfolded when a man entered a two-wheeler showroom and purchased a Suzuki GSX motorcycle. The peculiar aspect was that the buyer, none other than Christian Cravinhos, the older brother of Daniel Cravinhos, paid for the motorcycle entirely in $100 bills. Given the community's awareness of the financial struggles and drug addiction plaguing the Cravinhos brothers, Christian's sudden appearance with a substantial sum of cash raised numerous suspicions and led to the concerned citizen promptly notifying the police. Before long, Christian Cravinhos found himself facing the consequences of his actions at the police station. Succumbing quickly under pressure, Daniel's elder brother confessed to the brutal murder of Manfred and Marija. Christian admitted that he committed the crime with the assistance of Daniel and Suzane. The motive behind the murder plot stemmed from Suzane's longing for an unrestrained life with Daniel, fueled by the desire to access a vast fortune that could sustain them for a lifetime. Subsequently, both Suzane and Daniel were arrested, and they, too, admitted their involvement in the heinous act. Ironically, as soon as they were taken into custody, the bond of love that seemingly bound Suzane and Daniel together dissipated into thin air. Their relationship crumbled under the weight of their actions. Perhaps their love would have flourished if Suzane had inherited the $17 million fortune as expected. Suzane was granted temporary freedom until her trial, which, surprisingly, took place 4 years later in 2006. During this period, she agreed to participate in an interview with a TV channel. In an attempt to portray herself as a loving and grief-stricken daughter, Suzane shed tears and expressed her sorrow. However, her performance fell flat. Unbeknownst to her, a hidden camera captured her lawyer coaching her on how to act and cry convincingly. This unfortunate turn of events exposed the disingenuous nature of her interview and served as undeniable evidence against her. This inadvertent mishap ultimately sealed Suzane's fate, undermining any remaining credibility she had and strengthening the case against her. On October 31, 2002, at 9 p.m., Suzane and Andreas departed from their residence. Unbeknownst to Andreas, Suzane had devised a sinister plan, leading him to believe that she was assisting him in attending a party. After dropping off Andreas, Suzane, Daniel, and Christian made their way back to the house. Suzane skillfully disarmed the alarm system and discreetly allowed the others to enter. Once inside, Suzane nonchalantly settled on the sofa, observing as Daniel and Christian brutally attacked her own parents. Armed with crowbars, the brothers mercilessly assaulted the defenseless couple. Despite the agonizing cries of pain, Suzane remained unmoved. Blinded by the allure of the staggering $17 million inheritance, the drugs that money could provide, and other undisclosed motives, Suzane was consumed by her desires. The brutal beating inflicted severe injuries on Manfred and Marija, leaving them bloodied but not yet deceased. In a chilling turn of events, one of the brothers attempted to waterboard the victims using a wet towel, inadvertently causing the death of Manfred. Marija, still clinging to life, fell victim to Daniel's suffocation as he mercilessly placed a plastic bag over her head, ending her suffering. With the gruesome act complete, the trio proceeded to stage the crime scene to resemble a failed burglary. Papers were scattered, money was stolen, and the three perpetrators slipped away from the house undetected. The final step involved fabricating alibis. Christian ensured he was seen at a fast food restaurant to establish his presence. Meanwhile, Daniel and Suzane checked into a motel room, securing an invoice as evidence of their supposed stay. All that remained was to pick up Andreas, return home, and put on a facade of surprise and innocence. During the trial, Suzane and the Kravino's brothers engaged in a blame game, each pointing fingers at the other. Suzane claimed that she had been coerced and manipulated while under the influence of drugs, alleging that the Kravino's brothers took advantage of her vulnerability to involve her in their wicked scheme. Conversely, the Kravino's brothers placed the responsibility squarely on Suzane's shoulders, asserting that she was the mastermind behind the entire plan. According to their testimony, they were merely carrying out Suzane's wishes and following her lead. The courtroom became a battleground of shifting accusations as each party sought to distance themselves from the heinous crimes committed and shift the burden of guilt onto the others involved. The conflicting narratives further complicated the case, leaving the truth obscured and the final verdict in the hands of the legal system. On July 22, 2006, Suzane and Daniel received 40-year prison sentences, while Christian was sentenced to 38 years for conspiracy. In 2014, Suzane married fellow convict Sandra Regina in prison. Sandra was in for a murder and child kidnapping. The relationship lasted only till Sandra was freed. Thanks for watching.